Hello folks, out on the bike again, finally. I had several visitors, so didn't have as much time to ride around, hanging out with friends here and there. A lot of fun, a little bit tiring just because I drink more wine when I have guests, because they want to drink the good wine we have here. Usually I like to have a few glasses of wine and then not have for a while, because it builds up after a while. I feel really hypertensive if I'm drinking every day, regardless of how much. Anyway, it's good to be back in the saddle. I'm going to talk about uncertainty for a while, but before then I might as well give a shout out to Sam Harris' podcast, where he reviewed his treatment of the pandemic event, and I thought it was fair and accurate. I agree with almost everything he spoke about, in particular the way he treated influencers who suddenly became experts during the pandemic. One of the things about uncertainty is it's uncertainty. So you're uncertain until you know better, or until you've learned what you need to learn to understand a particular domain. And also data's coming in, and it may be an event that's an outlier, that's unusual, and requires coordinated efforts globally to create a response that's effective and saves lives, etc. And of course, conspiracies are going to thrive in those uncertain times, because people want to know what's really going on, and the conspiracy-minded people come out of the woodwork. So some people that I followed at the beginning of the pandemic, and I stopped following them after a year or something, or less into it, kind of for the same. Well, anyway, the point is these guys are still obsessing about all of the COVID stuff, so they're still producing videos and live streams where they talk about the same old stuff over and over again. It's like Kennedy assassination. Oh, new evidence has come to light, and then 6 months later you realize the evidence really wasn't all that, and we go back to the default. So after books have been written and lots of data has been analyzed, and all the experts have weighed in from across the globe, and you kind of have a pretty good clear idea of what happened, more or less, the mistakes that were made, and etc. If there was any corruption or any follow the money type things going on, you figure it out. And then you're like, okay, let's learn from that and move on. But of course, Sam Harris was pointing out that because of all the noise and the misinformation, disinformation, and very smart people just becoming obsessed with the topic they don't know much about, these things tend to outlast their usefulness in terms of all that commentary. And then people lose trust in institutions. I've talked about this a lot. And then, nobody knows what to believe, and a coordinated, coherent, cohesive global response to an emergency becomes impossible. And so the next time, if it's like a DEFCON 10 pandemic event, it's going to be tragic, because we're going to have a lot of people saying, oh, look what happened during the last pandemic. And he made a point about people who voluntarily, in a certain cohort, like 60 and above, decided they didn't want vaccinations, and the statistics bearing out the truth that if you didn't vaccinate, you were way more likely to have a bad experience with the virus and then die from it. Anyway, it's going to be problematic, and of course, with AI and everything, and you don't trust institutions, we're all going to start to think that we're being utterly, totally, completely, effectively manipulated by the system, whether you want to call it neoliberal or whatever, global capitalism, materialism, anyism. And the people who benefit from the system are going to have us at the end of marionette strings. So we are eating out of their hand at the moment. So that's just natural. You do what you know, what you've been programmed to think. And sometimes the programming's good, and sometimes it's not so good. And so we have to constantly be vigilant about our thinking, and question what we're thinking, where we got our thoughts from, and then sit kindly and patiently with our uncertainty. Like, oh, guess what? I just don't know. Imagine that. I'm uncertain at the moment for many reasons. So I'm going to look to people and information that is coming from experts, sorry to say, and then trying to find the shortcut to this part of the world that I like to go to. So I'm going to look to that. If it's all like math to me, or something I'm not familiar with, and I'm interested in understanding the topic or domain, I'll have to do some research and some reading. I had a nice talk with my friend Mick about that kind of thing, and I'll do a little bit of research and see if I can understand, but I'll do the long reads, and if I don't understand the statistics, or now I'm wondering if I should have turned earlier. So if I don't understand, I'll have to go somewhere where I can learn to understand, and it may take a little bit of time and energy to do that, which people may or may not want to invest, depending on your circumstances and proclivities. But it's very easy just to sit and audit a video or a podcast passively and just listen to the outrage and people talking like they know it all when they obviously don't or couldn't. How could you possibly know it all in this domain or whatever when you're not that? The guy's a university professor in biology, and he thinks he knows all the other domains involved with something. So that's a problem. People aren't willing to sit calmly with their uncertainty and say, I think Sam Harris did a pretty good job of that. He didn't flog the horse the whole pandemic. And his experience is similar to mine in the sense that I got all my vaccinations and I've had COVID a couple times that I know of. And I'm okay. I'm 65. And I live in a country where people, as he said, just lined up and followed the rules, the advice from the government. There were very few, abstainers or people who... The information was pretty straightforward. They did break it down into cohorts. They did shut schools for a while. They did all that kind of stuff. We masked, we social distanced, we did all that. But it was throttled. It was on and off, and then eventually it was all off. And this year I can go to my pharmacy in my town and get a free flu shot and COVID shot. Just make an appointment, go in and get the jab. So, like my conspiracy-minded friends on WhatsApp group, according to their assessment of things, we should all be dead in Portugal because 94% of people here got vaccinated. So we're all dead, basically. We're walking dead. And isn't that interesting? So I joke about that, and I tease my friends on WhatsApp about it because I think it's funny. But here we have it. Bom dia. Old people out swinging a hoe in their garden. Looking pretty fit. All jabbed. But anyway, the bottom line is, you have the United States, which is a powerful, high-tech country that runs the world. Culturally, politically, economically, has the power to sanction, to invade. And one would think, with all the acronyms providing security to the United States, that they would have pretty accurate information about what's going on in the world. And I think, in fact, they really do. But do the politicians and the business leaders want to take their advice? So the CIA, NSA, Department of Homeland Security, whatever, can come up with intelligence product and present it to the president and his staff, to Congress. It's up to them to act on it. It's not the mandate or, remit of the CIA to decide policy. Now, of course, they do nefarious things, naughty things. We should all know that by now. But they exist for good reasons. And it's these malincentives that, Sam Harris was talking about, I talk about, that kind of drive the behavior of our politicians and business leaders. Because, as I always say, we live in a socioeconomic system that believes in profits first, like it's a religion, or like some version of your interpretation of John Locke and Adam Smith or whatever is the absolute truth, regardless of context or how things changed over time, the difference between 60s and 70s, the 80s and 90s. You don't want to look at that. Things that evolve, things change. And, I really screwed up. I went way too far. I should have. But I know this road. I'll just wind down this way. Anyway, so yeah, they have all the tools and the data to present accurate information. And you know, who are they acting for? You know, who's keeping those careers in those security institutions, agencies in business? You know, they have budgets, they compete with other agencies, they all have careers that are very important, obviously, to each person who makes their living at one of these agencies. And you know, they're motivated to kind of give the customer what the customer wants. And that may be something like the best money we'll ever spend to destroy Russia will be to use Ukraine in a proxy war or something, whether you believe that or not. But it happens all the time. Historically, you wouldn't be surprised if that were the absolute truth of it. And in fact, there's tons of documented information about the intelligence agencies chiming in, giving the information, and the leaders just cherry picking, you know, what they want out of it, and developing a narrative, also known as propaganda, to help everyone decide that the best thing to do is to, you know, do what they're doing now. So I would say, you know, in the game theoretic sense, the players know exactly what they're doing, but who are they playing for? Not for you, my friend. They're playing the game in Washington, D.C. and other places, Brussels, and they get their money from certain sources we all should know of and understand by now. And you know, it just doesn't make sense to me that we spend trillions of dollars on certain things when we have problems that need solving, that are existential risks, really, really dangerous. Now, everyone knows war is hell, and it's horrific and disgusting and bad, but somehow the trade-offs are okay. You know, it's like, well, you know, we have to do this because these people over here in this other country want to eat us for lunch. I don't believe they do. Having visited Russia, for example, and the Ukraine, and having lived in Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong, I know my anecdotal experience and the experience and the thoughts of a lot of other people who spent years over there doing business is that they don't want to destroy the United States of New Miracles. It's not in their best interest to do so, and so they don't want to. But it's in the best interest of certain corporations, without being the least bit conspiratorial, to create an irrational enmity with these countries and to drive it towards war. As long as you can keep your seat in Congress while you're doing it. Because God forbid your son has to go fight in Ukraine, or you have to give up something, and the rest of us just go along with what we see on TV, because we don't have much time to investigate this stuff ourselves. You know, it can't be blamed for that. So I don't know if I should go down this road doesn't seem big enough. Yeah, I really screwed up. I'm going the wrong direction. But you should have my problems on a bicycle in the fall in Portugal. So, I don't know if they're ignorant or not, or if they're ignorati, if they're willfully ignorant, stubbornly ignorant because of greed and avarice and ego and vanity. We are trained to be narcissists these days because we can all do it ourselves. We can provide our own security, make our own millions. We don't need anybody else. All we have to do is strive until we mentally break down to be the best we can be and to manifest and whatever. The fact is, that's nonsense. Human beings need a lot of things, and a lot of it we take for granted nowadays. And so we don't sit with our uncertainty. So maybe our leaders, some of them probably are fairly ignorant. I mean, classically, the definition of that word, they just don't know anything about a topic, a particular topic. And some of them are ignorati, they're willfully ignorant, which is to say, they're not going to pay attention to anything that threatens their position. So they feign ignorance and they disseminate it. In other words, they disseminate propaganda and stories that keep the plebs and proles ignorant. That's their thing. And of course, if the plebs and proles have some voice in a particular situation, they might listen to it. But they're, in the United States at least, they're listening to their donors more than people. So, they have to raise lots and lots of money to run for their seats. They can't afford to let their guard down. So some may be uncertain. They may realize there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns and known knowns and whatnot. But in fact, oh no, now I'm here. That was a weird way to get here. So, nice little goat. Goats. I like goats. Nice goat farm. So, it seems to me just painfully real. So I can understand why people who lack information or are consuming too much misinformation, or watching a underwater basket weaving expert talk about cancer research day in and day out, and thinking they're well informed because their favorite underwater basket weaver is a self-proclaimed expert in ontology. So pretty rough. But when you talk about war and peace, what are the incentives for peace? Well, different systems and structures will decide in some ways what those incentives are. And for some people in power, there may not be many incentives not to have a war. Generally, it's costly and dangerous, but anyway, I think if you're a strategist, if you're serious, if you're a well-paid expert in your field, in security or whatever, and you understand game theory, equilibriums, bargaining, space, hello guys, beautiful dogs, doing a good job there, excellent work. Yes, I know. Just getting some exercise. Oh yes, this is nice. I'm happy. I took this road. Oh. Okay, that was worth it. Yeah, so these well-paid professionals in whatever agency they work for, they probably do know what's going on, and they probably shake their head a lot of the time, but there's nothing they can do. Their remit is to provide intelligence product to the government, and they do their job, or to do whatever other nefarious things they're supposed to do. And the real incentives come from on high, and those are usually financial. We just don't have a whole bunch of idealists running around anymore. You can see that they're venal, it's so obvious. To me, anyway. Oh, Bika Raposta. This is a perfect zona. I like Bika Rapostos. So, yeah. And we don't understand it. How can we? I mean, in some way it seems like, and maybe it's not really deliberate, but it seems like our system is, and the people who support it are trying to keep us mentally and physically and spiritually exhausted, so that we really can't, we get resigned and apathetic, and we say, there's nothing I can do about it. So after I'm done with this game theory thing, I think from now on all I'm going to talk about is like through fiction and some other projects, what we can do about it, even if at the end of the day it doesn't work out. Like a lot of things don't work out. Businesses fail. If you want to make a movie with a budget over 50,000, from let's say a couple 100,000 to a couple million, it's going to fail. But if you can afford a bunch of movie stars and your budget is 20 million, you have a much better chance of making the investors' money back. But if you shoot a project for under 50K, there are ways to redeem that 50K and make $10,000 profit. So maybe your investors are happy if they get $1,000 back at the end of the day, and they're like, well, that was fun, that was an interesting project, and I made $1,000. It's like, anyway, we can know what's going on, or think we do, and educate ourselves, but we have limited power unless we want to organize with other human beings to accomplish something, whether it's in business or in local politics, at the school board, or something like that. Through our charities, through our philanthropic efforts. And you can be a philanthropist and still be poor. In a certain way, So, I think, if you're going to say anything to a friend who's just all excited and revved up by some influencer online, is do you really think they know what they're talking about? And aren't you just a little bit uncertain, to be honest? And what would you have to do to be more certain that this person was the right guy or the right girl to be talking about this shit? And of course, you'd look at their sources of information, and you'd have to look into that and any other biases that you notice in them over time. You can get a very keen eye on logical fallacies, biases, and heuristics and these things if you try, and it's fun. And in the beginning, when you're learning about it, you feel smart, and you can call your friends out on confirmation bias. Straw man. And then you think, wow, I'm cool. I know what that means. Yeah, so basically you're looking at risk reward, and you're saying, You know, I'm uncertain about the other players, what they think, believe, and do, and their system, you know, their moves are based on what. I'm uncertain about that, so I got to get more information, make my strategic and tactical decisions based on good information, and all the while having a bargaining position. So is it a you know, win-lose situation where, you know, I either win this knife fight or I die, period. There's really no other choices, no other options. The optionality is not there. So you just have to pull your blade and start, you know, thrusting to see who gets stuck first. Or can you, do you have options? Is there a way to talk your way out of it? You know, to give up your wallet or whatever, and, you know, say, I'll live to fight another day. And then when you see the moves these people are making around the world, it seems like they just want to muck things up. And the track record is not good. So you may think the war on terror, the war on drugs is there to keep you secure, but it hasn't made you more secure, really. So, but I think that's a good, my opinion is right, I think so. But again, it's just my opinion, right? Just like all these tough guys with their own platforms on the internet that, you know, whose opinion you trust, you think it's well-informed, well-reasoned, logical, whatever. Yeah, so we have to be humble with our sense of epistemics and ontology and all that kind of philosophical stuff, while at the same time making the effort to understand why we can trust people. I think Sam Harris made a great analogy. It's not perfect, but it's pretty damn dramatic and good about flying in airplanes. So it'd be easy to spin off 1 billion conspiracies if you know that some of the parts and engines are counterfeit. Stuff like that. But if you look at the statistics, the safety record of flying for millions of people a year, it's pretty damn good. And he made that analogy with the mRNA vaccine or vaccines. If you look at the raw numbers that compiled by good sources, and you have to have a source for numbers. I don't care who you are. Well, my source for numbers is my imagination. Well, that doesn't cut it in the real world. You have to have a source of data and numbers, and then you have to know how to analyze those numbers. So who knows how to do that? You know, I don't trust anybody. Nobody knows how to do that, William T. Are you crazy? Whoa, that's a nice little modern house. That's a nice little modern house with a nice little modern view, man. See what I'm saying? Modern house with a modern view. Look at that modern view. So yeah, I like this road. I wanted to find this road, and I like it. I'm enamored by this road. Rua de Maio. So, that was a good analogy, you know, and its risk is a difficult thing to sum up because there's probabilities, and you have to look at all the probabilities and then make a choice, a decision, which way to go. It's just not, you know, there's no way you can know it all or have all the facts and the idea of a Nash equilibrium, where both sides have the same information and are going to act in a certain way, and you know that, and is interesting. But generally speaking, that's the reason why we have antitrust and different laws regarding investment, insider information rules, and whatnot. Some people have more information and can act on that information, and other people have less, obviously. So we consider it unfair, and so we try to regulate it. And then, of course, the people who have the advantage, they don't think it's unfair. They have the advantage. Why would they give it away? So, you have to fight for it. You have to just take it. And that's the way the world works. So I think it's going to be like this for decades to come. And the only thing that's going to shift it radically, quickly, is starvation. I think that's the most potent tool to get leaders to change. Why? Because even if they have their private militias or their armies or whatever, the masses get really irritable when they're starving. And they become a mob, and they become really dangerous. You can let them eat cake, but maybe cake isn't enough. So they all pissed off, blood sugar problems and diabetes, and they're coming for you. And when that happens, obviously, all bets are off, and people run for the hills. And you don't even need starvation. You can be Libya and have the most affluent country in Africa, and you can have some outsiders come in and work up a big storm and get people riled up, and the powerful folks still have to run for the hills. But I think for the wealthy countries of the world, the only thing that's going to unseat this particular type of system that we have now is mass starvation in the rich world. So you have your monocultures across the United States, intensive farming and chemicals, and you're beholden to the petrochemical industry and whatever to grow enough food to make it profitable for the corporation. You're not growing food for people to eat, you're growing food for corporations to make products to put on the shelves. Of course, people eat those products, but you know what I'm saying. So at some point the soil gets so damaged that all the technology in the world and the GMO seeds and whatnot just can't replace the fruits and vegetables and the meat products we need to feed people. And things start to break down because of climate, and you can't move quick enough. You can't, if Bill Gates bought all the land in the United States and he could just shift the farms from one place to another in a heartbeat because he's so powerful, you'd still have a problem. People would still be starving, and there's no excuse today for people to starve. But anyway, we don't seem to care about certain parts of the world, and then we wonder why the hell they're migrating. We're withholding technology and science and funding and everything from these countries that are under duress, and then when they want to come to our country because they want to live, we blame them for it. It's their fault. How dare they? It's absurd to me anyway. I find our world, like other people, fairly absurd. I'm not going to get depressed about it. I also find it entertaining in a weird way. Bom dia. So, Famalição. It's a nice sounding little town. Sounds kind of cool. Oh, this is interesting spot. I'm always on the lookout for little restaurants and stuff when I'm in these zones. Yeah, so the world's gonna continue on like this because it's a powerful system and it's still got lots of energy behind it. There's plenty of oil and gas and plenty of momentum in the economy to keep things going like this. Restaurante a Raposa. I wonder where that is. Is it straight or over there? So I'm concerned that, any idealists that run around thinking of the new best possible way to make the best of all possible worlds are shit out of luck, because people just aren't focused on that kind of activity. They've been trained to compete, and they've been taught that they're useless if they can't compete, and that it's their fault if they're fat, and their fault if they're not smart enough, and their fault if they're not ambitious enough, and their fault if they don't work hard enough. And it's breaking people's souls. For centuries, people really didn't have to live like that, Okay, Cafe Al Resposta. Okay, I see. It has a nice freaking parking lot, which is always good to see for the cars in the world. All right, that was fun. So, I'm on another main road. I think I want to see if there's a parallel one that has less cars. Yeah, so our world's going to be like this. So if you're in a good position with your investments and your holdings, and you live in a nice, kind, stable part of the world, you can probably look forward to more of the same kind of prosperity that you have. That's not to say that really bad things couldn't happen in a heartbeat, like a nuclear war or something else. But of course, that is way out of your control. But my feeling is I wish more people were organizing together on a local level and working to mitigate these major risks that we have. I know it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for anybody. But I'm pretty much tired of learning things now. I'm tired of reading books. So I just want to write more, because you fill in some gaps, you learn a bit more about this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't change a thing. Life goes on. That's cool. Centro Social, Famalição. This town is pretty nice. There's a big school there. Wow, this town is well put together. Famalição. First time for me. So, yeah, my advice is if you've got it all hanging and it's all beautiful and good, stick with it probably. If you're uncomfortable, you want to change, go for it. Do whatever you want to do. But I'm a firm believer. I think there's plenty of evidence for this, that there's going to come a time in the near future, not the far off future, where you're not going to be able to move. You're not going to have the same freedoms that we have now. They're going to diminish over time. There's a lot of factors involved with that. More and more control is going to be taken up by the machine, whatever that is, AI, neural nets, technology, science, corporations, the whole 9 yards. And pretty soon it's going to be just like lockdown for everybody. So you're not going to be able to make those choices like, well, I think I want to change it up and move to Mexico. Or start a new business, or move to another state, or have a family, have a child or not. So I think it's time to make those important decisions for yourself and your people together and say, what do we really want to do here? Time is of the essence. This is the best of all possible worlds, right here, right now, in this particular situation. It's not going to get any better than this. I spent my whole life, I'm so lucky, thinking it was only going to get better. All of it was good. And that pretty much held true until 2009 or 2008. That after a couple of crises in rapid succession, Asia crisis, .com bubble, and then the financial crisis, with all the wars and everything, 9/11, all that stuff, I started to think, holy cow, maybe it's not working. And the internet, I've talked about that before. We have all the world at our fingertip, but who's going to Khan Academy and why? So I started to think, geez, it's not going in the right direction. And then you look at the numbers, the statistics, and you're saying it really isn't. People aren't getting smarter. They're not better thinkers. They're not healthier. There's like, did we really top out already and now we're going to go in the other direction? How sad is that, right? It's tragic. So, I don't know. I try to be well-read. I try to look across domains, and I try to be fair with people's ideological and philosophic positions. And I just don't see like we're making the kind of, well, some people hate progress. Well, then I guess if you hate progress, your idea of progress is that everything stays like it Elizabethan England or something, which is great, but it's not going to happen. Progress to us is everyone gets their own ethno-state, or whatever other crazy thing. Everybody believes in this religion. The caliphate, that's progress. And yeah, okay, that's your thing. Maybe that's progress. But I just mean, when I think of progress, I mean things get better for the common person. The common it, they, we, she, that they can make a living, they can have a fairly secure and fulfilling life, they can eat, they can love, they can get their heart broken, be a human being, while not destroying their environment or their health, mental health or whatever, just basic stuff like that. More people having a better life. And I think that's nice, rather than needing your living space and having to kill tens of millions of people to get it. What does that solve at the end of the day? It just seems like you're going to find another scapegoat, somebody else to burn, somebody else to kill. And it just never ends, So my progress is people get wiser, I guess. That's what progress is for me. Maybe it's not going to happen. Probably not. But in my story, the way I tell it when I'm writing my fiction is that circumstances dictate, and sometimes people do good things when things get rough. And that different systems can be invented and adhered to. Something else can arise, can emerge from circumstances, given circumstances, and possibly be better. in my opinion. So what's better? That's what I always ask people, you know? If you're this, that, or the other thing, explain to me what the values are, what the belief system is, the philosophy of life, and so on and so forth. Let me know about it. I want to know. Whatever it is. How does it work? Give me some details, just a little bit, to pique my interest and to educate me, if you don't mind being generous. So I have my ideas about what that would look like. And you might think I'm crazy. But, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien or whoever, right? Coming up with the fantasy worlds or the sci-fi worlds or whatever. If you can think it, it can be done to a certain level, right? I mean, you might have to solve problems like, say, well, in the future, we're not going to be burning carbon for mass quantities of energy to move things around the world and make all kinds of shit for us to become addicted to. But we're going to have some other kind of energy, and we're going to think of energy as something spiritual, intellectual, productive in the sense of enhancing one's life experience and so on. So that kind of gross national happiness that you see in Bhutan, I don't know if they're accomplishing it or not. They seem to be getting more and more westernized from when I visited a long time ago. But yeah, you can have that different world. And a lot of people imagine it. There's tons and tons of people. Some people think they're really clever and they've figured it all out and it's going to be like this. Some people put their hand up and say, follow me and everything will be perfect. I'm not one of those people, obviously. But I can imagine a different future. And what I think, if you're a young person and can imagine a different future and you believe that it's a good thing, is to test your ideas with lots of different people, see what they have to say about it, and then build community, however small. You know, say let's do this thing here. You know, a craft village or a content producing village or this kind of farm with this, that, and the other thing going on, or whatever it is. Doesn't have to be a label on it like Game Bee or Civium or whatever. It's just like, you guys want to do this with me? And if you still have the freedom and the agency to actually make a play like that, you know? It's not too late. Wow, how exciting that is. I'm thinking that, you know, if you don't start doing things like that now, there's going to be a time when you can't anymore, which is tragic. So I feel like even if it all falls apart because of a crisis, a global crisis, at least you know how to do it. You've built community, you've developed businesses, you've coordinated action with people, and you've collaborated, and you've loved, and you've fought, argued, gotten your feelings hurt, gotten dirty, and you can say, wow, man, that's awesome. You know, look at what we accomplished together, you know? And it was all worth it, just to do that, rather than be a cog in a machine and basically have to kowtow to the powers that be while you ruin your mental health and your physical health. I mean, yeah, you could be like CrossFit Big Shot, you know, Yogini. You can still wreck your mind being obsessed with these things, you know, because you're compelled to be obsessed with them. Because you're going to feel guilty if you're not perfect. You know, my body is my temple. Of course, if you want to be a yogi or yogini, why not? That's what really drives you and makes you feel alive. I'm just saying, the time to get together with your friends and build something is now. And you might want to broaden your mind a bit and say, you know, I'm really not going to build something just to make money. I want more than that. Oh, obviously, we want enough money to be able to do what we want to do. And we live in this particular world right now. But I want something that transcends that a bit, so that in the future it has legs and depth and spirit. And you can just use the word like, you know, the root of the word, the etymology, you know, spirit, inspiration, breath, life. You don't have to make it a magical thing. How do you feel when you feel some spiritual connection or whatever? You feel enhanced, right? You feel freer, broader, more expansive, more alive. Well, that's fine. What's wrong with that? Jim Rutt. You can use the word spiritual without having to pull your sidearm. Paradigm without having to pull your sidearm. Just think of those things in your life that inspire you, you know, awe-inspired. It's probably going to happen fairly quickly that there are more constraints on us, not less. And if you consider like having to use less gasoline, or having to buy less clothing, or having to eat less meat, or whatever, it's a constraint. It bugs you because you want to have it all the time. God damn it. I think you can pretty much count on that happening, so you might as well get used to it. Like, what's wrong with cold showers, really? You know, you turn on the tap, you rinse off, turn off the tap, shampoo your hair, turn on the tap, rinse your hair, turn off the tap, use some soap, get clean, turn on the tap, rinse off. It's all very invigorating, and there's some data that studies that have shown that cold therapy is a good thing for you. So, you know, but no, I have to have a hot shower 3 times a day. Well, I'm pretty sure that a lot of places in the world don't get hot showers 3 times a day, and that in the future, maybe people in Seattle won't, or even Washington, D.C. Paris. Not that Parisians want to shower every day. I'm not saying that. But, you know, if you can really find out who you are and what you want to do with people, in concert with people, you'll probably be really happy, and you won't need 20 different, you know, winter jackets just because they're cool. Well, that one was my favorite jacket, but I got bored with it. I had to get another one that looks a little different. And in that way, we would conserve water and resources for future generations to be spiritual in whatever way they wanted to be. If they want to talk about a budding Buddha, or many Jesuses, the many Jesus theory, multiverse, multi-Jesus. Because if you're honest, we live in a multi-Jesus universe, right? There's not just one interpretation of Jesus and Jesus Christ and whatever. Nor is there one interpretation of anything. Buddhism or whatever. Republicanism. You know, you have the French Republic. What do you mean by that? What's the historical context? What do you mean when you say the United States is a republic? So we might have less freedom. I don't know about you, but there is a censorship problem that's coming up. And it's not so bad right now in Europe and America, but it might get worse, a lot worse. And it'll creep up on us. You won't even notice that you don't get some information. It'll just become something that doesn't exist, like water to a fish. You know, I didn't know about that. Of course you didn't. Nobody's looking into it. And if they were, they would be censored, canceled, gotten rid of, fired. Get with the program or disappear. Be ostracized, cast out, and delegitimized. You know, have all the propaganda come down on your shoulder and say what a terrible person you are. And say it enough, everyone's going to believe it. They're going to be saying, yeah, terrible. That person's terrible. I heard it. Everybody thinks so. Everyone who says he's terrible gets millions of likes. Anyone who says he's not terrible is ignored or bullied. Not nice. But that's where we're at. And artificial intelligence is, these large language models and so on are rapidly replacing those innocent little algorithms that used to concern us. How do I game the algorithm? Algorithms for dummies, only $12.95, on sale now. You know? I think a simpler life lived in a nice community of people, not all of them your best friend, is something beautiful. Now, on top of that, if your community understands the importance of biodiversity and soil and on, watersheds and you know, feeding everyone, housing everyone, and so on and so forth. The more kind of idealistic they are, or not idealistic, but compassionate, creative, caring, concerned about the welfare of a broader spectrum of people, then that's good, I think. And all these little billions of points of light can be examples that we can all learn from. Plug and play. See what works for you and yours. That's the ticket. So I've talked too long now already, so anybody who's listened to this all the way through gets rewards, and you're gonna have good luck all month. And yeah, anyone who made it this far really listened to what I had to say. I appreciate it. I hope it was worth your while. And if it was, you thought that not only Sam Harris makes sense, but I can make sense, then you could share this video of a ride through the Portuguese countryside with some friends, or click like and comment on anything that I had to say. Much appreciated. I'll let you go now. William T. Out. Again, because this road is really prime find for me. And I'm going to document it because I want to remember it. It's a good shortcut to that area around Palmalição, which I like. And I want to explore that area more in the future because I've kind of neglected it. How dare I? So look at this view, man. Folks, sorry. Check this out. That's nice. Hills, the little serra, the mountain. Small mountain in the back. Woo! I like this road, so I got to figure out how to get on this road from down there in that valley, because that'll be my access point to paradise on future rides. Also, fall. I love fall. I've always loved fall wherever I live. Spring and fall. I love the spring in Japan because of the cherry blossoms and all that. And I love the fall because of the turning leaves and this weather, you know, it's a little bit drier, but it's still warm. It's like 24 degrees. And it's just so clear, not a cloud in the sky today. And it just feels good, you know, the air feels good and the temperature, everything. I feel peace, you know, in the fall. So the fall equinox just hit. So we're officially in fall. And it's a great time of year here where I live, and probably where you live too. So, very happy. This was a nice ride. A lot shorter than some of them, but a good distance. So that area I want to explore more because it's just not too far away from where I want to look around and explore. So I have to, you know, try to map out all these little roads in my head. And a fun thing about this too is like I map things out and I run into these restaurants and cafes and whatnot, and then I remember them, and then I later will drive to one of these places and have lunch or something. And it's fun. The other day when my friend Daniel was in town, we were just going to go have a simple lunch at a place we always go to, but it was like a 2-hour wait. It was on Sunday. So we started driving, got way the heck away from where we wanted to be, and it was too late to really just double back. It was nothing. So we kept going, and we found this really charming restaurant, really cool. And then we hung out and drank and talked with the owner of the restaurant for like an hour after we finished eating. Really nice. And we also found another place that was like a cave when Daniel was here. And that was awesome too. So, then Daniel. Okay, gosh. Alright, so I see this. I see you. I have to look around. Okay. So, find some nice stuff. And then on Saturday, running some errands, we decided to stop in Benedita, and there was a pão festival. Festa do Pão. Bread festival. So there are all these bakeries showing their work. Big stage for music that started late. Tons of people. And it's always cross-generational, you know, you got the little kids and the teenagers and the grandparents and the parents and everybody in between. And they're all just so lovely. I mean, I was talking to like 22-year-olds for hours. You know, some poor old dude comes up and just chews your ear off. And they don't mind. They talk right back at you in perfect English, because my Portuguese is sketchy. And they're just totally there with you, interested in what you have to say, and articulate and intelligent. Wow, this is interesting now. I've got to really pay attention. So you have that. You have that. Oh boy, this is nice. It's different. So yeah, this nice little forest here. Good grounds. You got the sheep. Hello, sheep. Be proud to be sheep. Oh, this place. Café dos Amigos. Okay. I know where I am. So anyhow, 22-year-olds, yeah, who just don't think you're just a crusty old stupid idiot from America, you know, talking shit. And they're really sweet to us. And we just hung out and had a really good time, you know, and had to leave a little bit earlier because we'd reached our limit. And the music starts late, and once that happens, you know, you best not be an old geezer. But it was really fun and lovely, and these kind of festivals happen all the time in all these towns. And people are sweet. There just doesn't seem to be the same divisions happening here that I imagine happen in parts of the United States. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's all good there too in most places. But it just doesn't seem like it. Whoa, that's a cool place, man. Yeah. So, that's a lot of fun. And it's always kind of spontaneous. So, you're not really expecting it. Guy. And suddenly you just bump into these places. Yeah, that makes sense. And people are nice. People are sweet. If you're friendly and open, they're friendly and open. And the conversation doesn't just gravitate towards politics and negative stuff. It's generally pretty lighthearted and fun, and you can get as deep with people as you want because they don't really mind that much. If you do want to talk about something, you know, hey, let's talk about whatever, the woke mob in America. That'll be fun. But generally, they're pretty cool about it, you know, whatever you want to talk about. So, I love that about this place. Every season, right? So it just leads from one thing to another. So there'll be fall festivals, there'll be Christmas festivals, on and on and on. They have these saints' days. And life just seems pretty normal. So I can't wait till the time when people are a la Jordan Hall, leaving the cities because the network is all online now, and you can just live these simpler lives in the countryside. I think that'd be great. You know, why do you have to have 27 million people in a city? Well, because the population is there. Why? Because you have oil and gas. So you can feed more people. Well, that's true, but maybe it's not going to be that easy in the future. Who knows? Or else we, you know, as I said before, it's like the more energy we have, the more things we're going to want. So we're going to be, so in a way that, you know, these futurists and transhumanists and technologists and so on are kind of right, because we want to grow. We want to do shit. So if we're not a multi-planet species, we're fucked. Because this planet just doesn't have enough for us, man. There's not enough. Considerable lack of materials to meet our insatiable needs. You know, so we're going to have to build Dyson spheres around suns, and we're going to have to find out miraculous quantum technology that does miraculous quantum things, so we can extend our power and ambition and beauty and brilliance, live forever, traversing the universe. I don't want to freak this doggy out. Hello, freaky. He's cute. He's cute. Hola. Bom dia. No, it is bow tug now. After 12. So, you know, some of these people think I gotta drag the human race out into the universe, whether they like it or not, or into a machine. Because, dude, I got news for you. There's enough for me and mine, because I can afford it, but not enough for you. So we need to put you in that cloud computer on the dark side of the moon. But you'll be fine. It's better. You don't get sick. You know. Of course, it's all nonsense. Never gonna happen. We're just extrapolating and imagining all these things and thinking, that's cool, so I'm gonna get a startup, raise a whole bunch of money, and we're gonna do this thing. We're gonna be able to diagnose any disease, genetic or otherwise, with one skin cell. Trust me, man, we're this close. All I need is $50 million. I have to hire the best people. You know that. So this factory is where I turn left. And once I do that, I'm in business. I don't have to go the long way like I did. So, that's why people think like this, because we're narcissistic, we think we're smart, special, and we want to live forever, we want to have lots of power, we want to have lots of people follow us. So, you know, we're going to have to come up with these things. Neural net. What's it called again? Elon Musk's thing. It's going to wire our brains, bro. No more paralysis, you know, it's all gonna work. So yeah, obviously it's great, you know, prosthetics and limbs and so on that are enhanced by brain power. Nothing wrong with it, but you know, we tend to go too far with all of this stuff. Anything is possible, everything is possible, no constraints. And that bothers conservatives quite a bit.